today. So welcome everyone. My name is Gerald Okanag, Director of Beverage Testing Institute, and I'm here with my colleagues Jordan Friedman from Bon Morik and Mishan Ellis from Clout. And together we are the Beverage Development and Marketing Alliance. And we are so pleased to be able to speak with Liz Paquette, who is the head of Consumer Insights for Drizly today. So our format is simple. We're going to divide it up into 3 sections. And each of us will ask a series of questions of Liz, and we'll start a conversation. And after each section, we'll have an opportunity for spectators to ask questions as well related to that topic. Our first topic will be customers. That'll be led by Mishan. Then our second topic will be strategy and tactics, led by Jordan. And then I will finish up with brands and opportunities. And God, we're excited to get started. It's good to meet you, Liz. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Pleasure to meet you guys as well. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So we'll get started right away. First up is Mishan, who's got some questions for you, Liz, about customers.
Okay. If I could also, the folks that joined us this afternoon, can you put your computers on mute? We're getting a little bit of feedback. That will help. Thank you guys so much. So again, Liz, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We've been, your ears should be burning. We've been talking about you all week, and excited to have you on and share some of your experience with our folks that have joined us this afternoon. So let's start with talking about consumers, and from there, Jordan and Gerald will dive a little bit deeper into marketing strategy, some things that you guys are doing and that good stuff. So I get to warm you up a little bit. So
let's go.
All right. So as far as consumers, so obviously we've all been reading about what you guys have experienced as far as growth. Can you talk a little bit about life before the COVID virus? Your consumers, who were they? How large was that group? Set us a little bit on where you guys were prior to the outbreak.
Sure. So prior to the outbreak, I mean, in terms of our consumer base, in terms of how Drizly is set up, we are a marketplace, right? So we connect consumers directly to local retailers in about 180 markets across the US and Canada. So what that means is that our consumer base, by nature of the marketplace, is a little bit reflective of the areas in which we operate. We tend to be highly indexed in urban areas. Household income is a little bit on the higher end. On average, we're looking at about 100K plus. Okay. Pretty fairly even split male-female. We do air a little bit more on the male side. I think we're around like 53% or so. And then definitely highly millennial and Gen X.
Got it.
Slavery has been a bit commoditized across industry for some time.
Got it. And any information on as far as ethnicity or anything like that? I guess it would break down to markets too.
Yeah,
some of it too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, definitely depends on the market that you're in. We do definitely represent a number of different ethnicities. So, yeah.
Cool. So this outbreak has happened. We've seen this growth. New consumer base. Are you guys seeing a growth in among a certain segment that you didn't anticipate, or accelerated growth within a group that you were already having some success with? Talk a little bit about. We know that it's grown, but who makes up that new base now for you?
Yeah, so hasn't necessarily been a new segment per se that's been driving the growth in particular. In terms of demographics, we're experiencing pretty much the same that we were beforehand. What I will say is our new user base has skewed a little bit older than it had typically. Sure. Drizly historically actually has been aging up over the years. So each year our average user gets about 1 year older. And then with this new user base in particular, over these last 6 weeks or so, we did see new users go from about 36 years old on average to about 38 years old on average. So that's interesting. And then 2, new users overall are a big reason behind this initial growth that we at Drizly were experiencing. We said before all of this happened, one of the biggest challenges that we faced being in the alcohol e-commerce category was consumer awareness. It was something around 45% of consumers of legal drinking age in the United States actually believed that it was illegal to get alcohol delivered. So, what we're experiencing now is a major shift in that awareness level. This has been pretty organic in terms of growth. So a lot of the new user growth has been fueled by word of mouth, people referring these kinds of delivery services to their friends. And what we actually saw was a really strong shift in overall share between new and returning users. So typically new users make up about 15% of sales on Drizly. And in the past few weeks, they've ranged anywhere from 30 to 40%.
Wow.
Wow. So talk to me about behaviors. So this has been, and I've had conversations with a number of my clients who also have an e-commerce component to their business. Yes. And we're all trying to figure out, will this be the new norm as far as behaviors? Will consumers go back to the bars? I'm sure they will, but, will the online engagement continue to be a popular thing? So can you talk a little bit about behaviors, what you saw before the pandemic and what you believe will stick after this thing is we've beaten this thing?
Yeah, sure. Which we're right alongside everybody else and hoping that that's sooner than later.
Sure.
So, I think we have the humility to recognize that we don't necessarily have a crystal ball, and we can't ourselves predict exactly what the future will be once we get through this. And I think we have a lot to learn still about this new cohort of users that is now experiencing e-commerce for the first time within this category. I think what I will say is I'll hark back to this notion of the awareness challenge, right? Our biggest challenge was that people just didn't know you could do this. And now that being much less of a problem, we do think that is going to shift consumer behavior for the long haul. Sure. You look at any other industry, it's an expectation that you can get this kind of service on demand, get what you want, where you want, when you want it. And I don't think alcohol is any different. And now that people have had, a taste of that, we anticipate that will continue. And, that's been reflected in some of our numbers over the past weeks. We had that initial surge of, new users coming in and returning users buying in bulk. But we've seen that level kind of stabilize above our baseline in terms of growth over the numbers we would have expected to see at this point in time. So people are continuing to buy through this time period. So we anticipate that this kind of service will be something that consumers will continue to look to even as they do venture back out into the world.
Sure. And that's a great segue into, it sounds like you guys will, like many companies, will have the challenge of awareness building, but also customer retention. Yes. So can you talk a little bit about what's in the plans? Where you guys are? So I'm sure you're expecting some drop off. You kind of alluded to it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So talk about the retention plan. Whatever you can share.
Sure. Yeah. So a number of things. We first and foremost are trying to be helpful, right? We want to set up a process and a journey for our customers where they can not only get to exactly what they want in terms of product as quickly as we can get them to it, but also along the way help them discover and find new products that we believe based on either their prior purchasing behavior and or consumers like them, and or things like contextual things like time of year, occasions, that might be interesting for them to try out. And I think that's a huge part of what people actually love about going to the store is that you get that sense of discovery and being able to walk the aisles and see cool labels and find something that you think looks interesting and different. So, it's on us to make sure that we're doing a great job, both within the experience and then within our messaging that we're putting out to replicate that. And I think build on that in a way that can't be done in the physical experience. In general, I think it's the standard. We really believe that, right message, right time, right channel. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's not an easy thing to do. And it's particularly not an easy thing to do in a marketplace where your consumer experience is very different, dependent on even the zip level that you're at.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Very true.
So really trying to make sure that, we're using those contextual and behavioral triggers to help personalize each customer's journey along the way.
Sure. No, that's great. That's great. That's great. Gerald, you wanna let's talk a little bit of branding.
Yeah, I thought let's actually open up if anyone has any questions, just to put it in the chat. I just want to let everyone know to do that. We can take some questions in between the segments as well, so feel free to do that, everybody. And then yeah, let's go over to Jordan to talk a little bit more about strategy and tactics in the current climate.
Great.
Hi, Liz. I'm Jordan Friedman. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to meet you as well.
So, something you had mentioned in a recent interview, and you said it again today, something that's very striking is that people just weren't aware that you guys existed or that this was legal. So just, awareness has provided a lot of lift and a lot of, growth for you guys. And now you're capturing these eyeballs, particularly as they're edging older and arguably older, probably with a higher net worth. Mm-hmm. Have you guys considered creating revenue streams to capitalize on this through brand partnerships, sponsorships, or other means we might extend outwards? It would seem that online players like you, like Drizly in particular, would be coveted partners across a broad range of categories, including food and lifestyle. And kind of like, Amazon started just selling books, they wound up selling all sorts of things. Are there brand partnerships that would with brands that would seem obvious and some that would be not so obvious? I know Michonne has a few thoughts on this that you guys are thinking about or in discussions about.
Yeah. You can imagine that as consumer demand has gone up, as you mentioned, interest in partnering has gone up as well. So, we're in that fortunate position to be in conversation with a lot of brands that we admire, personalities that we admire, to try to figure out if there are ways for us to work together in a way that makes sense for our customer and for our brand. So certainly in conversations, both in terms of, are there experiences we can build within the platform that might improve that consumer experience and kind of help that personalization and discovery that I was talking about? And also too, partnering outside to, just create awareness around Drizly as something that you can use as a service. And I think, this to me plays right into that notion of this really being organically fueled. I think both consumers throughout all of this have been, the source of referrals for folks to services like Drizly, because I do think consumers are turning to delivery as a safer alternative right now. Sure. But I do see that same behavior happening in brands too, both in terms of, wanting to refer these kinds of services, but also helping to take the experiences that they've potentially normally done in person and bringing those online. So companies that, host events or are in the restaurant industry and are now doing digital sets and things like that. So we're definitely in some conversations with potential partners on those kinds of efforts as well. And then too, we do partner quite a bit with various producers within the industry. And that's both in terms of, helping to improve their experiences in the e-commerce space, but also helping, to extend the word about Drizly and these services as well, to grow the overall e-com sector within the alcohol industry.
Yeah, we were, if I could jump in, so we definitely talked about you guys and started to brainstorm a little bit. And one of the things we assumed that millennials were a heavy user for you guys. And these are individuals that, they don't necessarily want to own things, they want to access things. And one of the things that came to mind for us was Airbnb. Like, boy, is there an opportunity? Now, that doesn't seem like a natural partner for you guys, but, maybe. But there's just a thought we threw out there. Sorry, Jordan.
Yeah, no, love that. And actually one that we've been talking about for quite some time ourselves too, because normal circumstances, travel is absolutely a use case. You land in a city and you have no idea where you really are. Like, do you want to spend the time going to try to find our liquor store? Or do you want to just show up and have everything ready to go for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a good one for you guys for sure. Sorry, Jordan.
Hey, no problem. I think there's certainly a concierge element that you can bring, that you guys could bring to the table, that you're a very natural extension of what you do. And so Liz, with that in mind, beyond the usual stuff like offering price discounts and stuff, and since you have this level of data, knowledge, and buying behavior and buying history of your customers, what kind of other new type of CRM methods that you guys are thinking about, particularly when it comes to brand partnerships?
Yes. So, I've talked a lot about the discovery element, and one big focus area for us longer term is this notion of guided shopping. So, we have been heavily focused on building our network, making sure we have coverage in all the areas where there's demand, and that we are able to effectively offer the widest selection of beer, wine, and spirits online in North America. So that's been, key focus area. And then the phase two of that is once you've got this big wide selection, how do you actually take that and present that to your customers in an intelligent and helpful way? We all get the choice paradox where we get a little bit paralyzed sometimes when there's too much in front of us. And I think there's so many interesting, unique ways that you can do that within the alcohol space in particular. Someone mentioned food. We've definitely talked to potential partners around, could we actually build an experience within Drizly where, for example, you enter in what you're cooking up for dinner that night, and we present a bunch of personalized options for you that are going to be the perfect pair for that. So I think longer term, I'm personally so excited about the possibilities with this platform and with the data that we've got available to us, and how we can essentially, help to transform that shopping experience for this category.
Mm-hmm.
Uber Eats is looking over their shoulders for sure.
I will say we are definitely laser focused on the alcohol category. We believe that by having that narrow focus, and this in particular, we're able to build those kinds of experiences that you're talking about, because this industry and this category does have a very unique shopping behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's different than buying food. There's definitely an educational curve to finding something new and different. So we believe by having that focus on this category that we can do it better.
Yeah.
Gotcha. My last question, is my firm, we do a lot of work in terms of events. We work with French Quarter Fest. One of my partners is on the board of the Jazz Fest Foundation. Is you guys you're obviously in the online realm, but have you considered moving also your marketing into the terrestrial realm, such as through branded engagements, sponsorships of concerts? I know Budweiser's big on brought to you by Budweiser. Would Drizly consider engaging in the terrestrial space as well as the online space?
Yeah, that hasn't been our primary focus. We definitely are a performance-driven organization, so trying to drive efficiency in terms of acquiring new customers and then also retaining the ones that we've got. So I'd say that the digital space has been our number one focus from a marketing perspective. That's not to say that longer term we don't see value in those types of experiences. We very much are about making our customers' good times a little bit better, and being there for those moments where you're sharing a drink. So I think there's absolutely extensions longer term that will make sense. And I think we're seeing that come to life in this merging of the digital and physical that's happening now, with those kinds of events coming on into the digital space with these virtual events and concerts and happy hours.
Mm-hmm.
So you asked a lot about partnerships, and that's where a lot of the interest has been over the last few weeks in particular, and figuring out how Drizly can effectively plug into those.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Thanks. Well, those are my questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jordan. So we have an audience that's a very branded audience. A lot of them are small brands that we work with at our respective organizations. And so actually, I want to touch a little bit on the experience for brands. And you have a great dashboard that I've tapped into for reports and presentations, which I really appreciate all the data that you share so freely. And I wanted to drill in a little bit on craft brands versus established brands, and just how are the sales of craft brands doing on your platform versus the more established brands?
Yeah, so similar to when I was talking about demographic data, given where we operate, we do tend to operate in markets that I would say over-index in craft in particular. So we're the same. Craft tends to be, I think in beer in particular, something like 2 times the macros. IPAs in particular doing really well as of late. So there's definitely, we have our top selling brands, which, of course tend to be the macros, but there's definitely room for craft to play on Drizly.
Mhm.
And those who are interested in kind of partnering us to figure out how they can better represent their brands on there too, like we have those kinds of opportunities.
Mhm.
So I'd say like right now, definitely place to play. And I think longer term too, we'll continue to think about and figure out how we service these kinds of niche and local and craft brands that our consumers frankly just expect.
Hmm. And then to that, are people buying largely based on familiarity? Do you think right now that kind of comfort factor, and they're not trying new brands, or are you seeing people still exploring in this market?
Yeah, I'd say from a brand perspective, they have been leaning more towards the familiar.
Okay.
But there certainly has been some level of experimentation in particular categories. One thing that we've seen come through loud and clear is cocktail culture has come home.
Yeah.
So, as people are not able to go to their favorite bars and restaurants, they are ordering, craft spirits and gin and mezcal and tequila like never before.
Yeah.
Liquors, cordials, bitters, mixers are up something like double the growth rate above
Oh.
baseline that we're experiencing right now. So I think we're seeing it in certain categories where there's a little bit more experimentation than others.
Hmm. Yeah, I was really pleased to see those sections for the all the accoutrements and the ice and
Yeah,
everything. So it's one stop, which is great.
yeah, exactly.
With that, how can brands that are, let's say, traditionally on premise and really struggling right now, how can those kind of brands, craft brands in particular, really leverage your platform success? I mean, they're struggling, as I said, and they want to know what they can do to sell their materials and their products. What is
Yeah.
your kind of, if you could walk us through maybe one or two of your programs that you have set up? I've been to the brand page, and I saw the kind of intro to that. I was just kind of wondering like what's beyond that page.
Yeah. Yeah, so the page you're talking about, brands.drizly.com, that's basically the initial point to get you guys any new brands in our system so we can try to figure out how to best partner together. In terms of how we work with our partners, the first thing I would say in terms of a recommendation is if you think about what Drizly's model is, we're that marketplace, right? That means that we essentially are taking existing retailer shelves and digitizing them.
Right.
So I think a step one for any brand that's looking to ramp up their e-commerce game is to go to retail, right? To find the effective distribution partner to get you on the shelf in person so that you can get on the shelf online. In terms of the types of programs that we offer, you've experienced the dashboard. A big goal of ours is transparency with our partners and giving them that peek behind the curtain at an aggregated level so that they can get a better understanding of who's buying their brand online, what that customer cares about, what that journey is to get to their product.
Hmm.
Um, all those kinds of things are information that we do share with our partners.
Hey,
Um, Go ahead.
I do have a question. And again, we have some emerging, I don't like calling them small brands, I say emerging brands
Yeah,
in the
I like
audience.
it better.
And one of the questions that I see popping up is around support from Drizly for up and coming brands.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing? Any plans for the future? Some of the emerging brands are probably being hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And do you guys have any commitment in place or any, not to put you on the spot, but the audience is wanting to know what you guys are thinking about that.
Yeah. So in terms of programs, yes, we do have kind of like a different funnel for emerging brands. So things that are in progress right now are figuring out, are there ways that we can actually help merchandise some of those brands on a local level? So that's simple things like when you're on a browse page, do you see local to me?
Hmm.
Or craft, get to see some of those brands. Additionally, putting together kind of a toolkit so that these brands have the opportunity to take Drizly's materials and promote to their customer base that might typically be buying from them on-prem, So things like assets and logos and promos and things like that. And then just generally, I would say too, like becoming a partner and being able to access that data, like that is going to help not only you build your e-com experience and best represent your brand in that space, but there are also learnings, I think, to be gained from that for the longer term for off-prem in-store as well. So I'd say kind of those mix of those things are kind of how we're focused on supporting today.
Got it.
Thank you.
And we have another question from Conley. She says, I'm very familiar with Drizly, having been at Diageo for several years. Now I oversee marketing for a small but growing tequila brand. I recently reached out to Drizly to see if we could get on the platform in the markets that we're currently distributed, and was advised that Drizly will be setting up a self-service portal in Q2 for brands to upload their information. The question is, do you expect to be able to accelerate that process to aid smaller brands in generating awareness in e-commerce sales during these difficult times?
Yeah, acceleration is the name of the game across the board for us right now. So Drizly actually, I feel very fortunate to say that this at this point in time, but we just recently almost doubled our staff. And that's across every facet of the business and trying to ramp up to be able to accelerate these kinds of projects to provide support not only for our retail partners, but these emerging brands as well. So yes, that's absolutely kind of an urgent priority for us right now to try to get that across the finish line.
Great. And then we just had a kind of more fundamental question. I think you touched on it, but just to be crystal clear, the products that people see on Drizly, their options are limited by the market in which they're in. They can't come from other markets and so forth, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you could, in theory, shop from a different area if you're in a shipping state, but yes, it's limited by the zip that you are located in and delivery options within your area.
And are those delivery options, are they primarily the retailers that are delivering them, or are there other third-party delivery services?
Yes. Yeah. So most of the deliveries are done by the retailer staff themselves. We do also offer third-party delivery via various partners. It depends on which state you're in, whether or not that is something that you are legally able to leverage. And then there are different partners that our retailers are able to tap into. I would say a large majority are using their own employees. A small percentage are using these third-party delivery services. And then there is a percentage that are using both. So in those cases, the store has their retail employees that they're using for the majority of the deliveries. But then when there are these cases of high demand and they can't meet the capacity, you can very easily tap right into that third-party delivery service in the moment so that you're able to take advantage of those additional sales.
Got it. Okay, that is all the questions we had. And I think from our audience, unless anyone else would like to pose a question, please feel free to do so. Great. Anyone from our team, Mishan, Jordan?
No, this has been good, Liz. Thank you so much. You know, I did have one last question and I know the answer to this, but I figured I'd ask you. It's more from the group. The fact that we said we're going to have you on, my LinkedIn page has been blowing up. So, question. I know you guys work primarily with the retailers.
Yes.
Are there any plans in the future to work directly with distributors?
So we do partner with distributors. Our inventory comes directly from the retailers. So no plans as of today to change that. Drizly was built to work within the 3-tier system. So we have no plans to disrupt that anytime soon. What I would say, and I won't say anytime soon, we have no plans to disrupt that. Genuinely.
Yeah.
So what I will say, though, is that there are some retail partners who have really leaned into e-commerce and who have shifted some of their in-store operations to best meet this kind of demand. And some that are effectively separating out their in-store business from their e-com business and essentially operating as mini distribution centers themselves.
I see. Okay.
So there's that kind of opportunity longer term. And I think we'll see more of that kind of innovation from retail partners longer term who really want to make this work for their business.
Cool. Hey, thank you.
I have one more question, and I know you probably can't answer this. How many acquisition inquiries have you guys gotten?
I can't answer that.
Jordan. Well,
We have to answer it effectively.
we would not expect that. Well, thank you so much, Liz. It's been a real pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking some time to be with us.
Likewise.
And we're going to be posting this to our channels too, so some other folks can take a look as well. And I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes, so thank you so much.
Yeah, this is good, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
All right.
Cool.
Take care, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. Have the rest of your day.